Morning, morning, morning. Yes, we're back with another episode, another rider. Today we have the most interesting Sappy in the house. And she's going to tell us about why she's studying anthropology and various other things she's been doing. So nice to have you here today, Sappy.
Thank you very much for having me. What was I saying? So I was saying at the moment I'm interviewing. So I'm first year anthropology with visual practice at Goldsmiths. It's been really nice starting to study because for this whole past year I've been doing a gap year and I've been working at festivals every week all summer, and it was fun, but it was getting to the point where I was like, what am I doing? It was all hedonistic. I was earning money, but and now it's quite nice that I can channel my brain into something. So right now I've been channeling my brain into asking my family members what the partition means to them, because I'm half Pakistani. So it was quite interesting. I interviewed my uncle Naeem.
So wait, can I ask you?
Yeah.
I have to jump in there.
Yeah.
Are you asking both sides? Because I assume one side is white.
Yeah.
So obviously it's white English.
Yeah.
So they're historically on the side of the problem.
Yeah.
So I'm very interested to hear what the outcome was this on this
Okay,
one.
well that's interesting. Do you know what? I wasn't actually going to do that, but you've just given me an idea, thank you. But when I was interviewing Naeem, who's my uncle, Pakistani uncle on my mum's side, there was like a few of us there around the sofa. It was quite a casual conversation with the recorder there. And my dad was there as well, and he's white. And there was a moment where Naeem, because my mum's Pakistani side is they've got like quite a lot of money on the family, because my mum's dad worked for the UN and yada yada, and there's hereditary money there. So Naeem was saying, no, I don't really feel like I received racism. I don't feel like, he was quite not in denial, I don't think that's the right word, but he was quite adamant of that he didn't feel that victimized to racism as much as other people. But earlier he was saying that he didn't actually, he to this day doesn't have any Pakistani friends. And when he said that, he kind of realised that it was a bit sad. And then at that time, my white dad, he said, but don't you think the fact that you don't have any Pakistani friends is racism? Even though, then he said, but that was his decision because he actually actively decided to make friends with white people rather than his own Pakistani race.
Mm-hmm.
So it was that, and then he kind of discovered that strange internalized racism. Yeah.
Right, that's interesting, because I wouldn't put who you pick as your friends as internalized racism. And reason being is because if you live in a demographics where it's predominantly white, regardless of who your race is, as long as you're not white, they are going to be your natural friends unless they just don't want to be friends with you. Do you see that? If you live in Devon, they say that's a little Cornwall, the last strong white hold of England, and you're the only Asian or black or Far East person, then it's only natural.
It's only natural
that your friends are going to be white.
No, there were a lot of Pakistani people around him.
Okay.
And I think it came to a thing of, in his mind, it was about his career, because he's now an engineer. He built a bridge like 20 years ago, quite a successful engineer. And to become a successful engineer, he had to know just white people. Well, it helped to know lots of white people, because the people that he wanted to be involved with to make bridges were all white. So it was a thing of career. It was a choice of money and career.
Was it his company or was he just an employee?
No, he was an employee. But he was becoming an employee whilst he came over to here.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it was quite interesting watching him say because he's never talked about. No one ever talks about partition really in the family, because it's just like this past thing. But when he was talking, it was just all coming out, and he was very like admirably honest. And I think about him, even like, so when he became successful, he became like higher up in what he was doing, he would sort of do this role reversal thing and of a lot of people that worked for him, who were his assistants and stuff, were white, or people who would get him coffee. So he'd treat them a bit like shit. He'd like click his fingers at them, and he'd treat them like shit as this kind of like anger at everything that's happened, and that was his way of getting it out. So it just like hatred breeds hatred. And
That's an interesting point.
But he was sort of saying it in a funny way. And I think he even said at a point that some white guy like picked it up, that he was being extra cliquey, and they sort of laughed about it.
So something you said there that's made me think, where you said hatred breeds hatred. Because lately I've been talking to people about the difference within the black community in Britain. And you have, and obviously this will combine in with your anthropology, you have the descendants of slaves. So you have us as Caribbeans, and then you have the Africans. And if you look at the genre of music and the performance in education, the Africans are doing very well academically. Yeah, they're like internationally, let's say, they are, along with the Asians in Silicon Valley, they kind of run that. Yeah, and their music is very happy. It's not violent. It's not really sexual. And if it is violent, even in the slightest, it's kind of a happy, kind of playful, you know, kind of lovers kind of vibe. It's a bit like your Bollywood stuff. Yeah. But the Caribbean music is straight up violent and sexual. Black American music is violent and sexual. But yet we come from them. Yeah. So that is where we've been influenced through our experiences dealing with the Europeans. And you've got this generations upon generations of very short-tempered, violent, zero tolerance people. And it just occurred to me, and I put that to some other people, and there's like, oh yeah, and my friend was just saying, when the afrobeats was coming popular, a lot of the Jamaicans were complaining, for instance, like, oh, really? You should, because their music wasn't getting listened to. There's jealousy and envy and hatred, say. But my friend pointed out, and she's from a different Caribbean island, she said, yeah, but when I'm listening to the afrobeats, my grandma, my children, my grandchildren can all listen together. There's not a bit I have to turn off or pretend something wasn't said. But I can't do that with bashment.
Exactly.
Or rap.
I mean, to me and my mum talk about this. It's so obvious that the themes of like violence and sex is because of the history of slavery. But I think it's interesting that for so many people they're like, oh yeah, and then you've got to join the dots of like, I mean, it should be in like education of our kids like me. I remember I was learning Henry VIII, divorced, beheaded, survived, like for ages and ages, but we would never learn about the history of slavery, or even the concept that one thing leads to another. And if you put loads of strawberries at the beginning of making a cake, the cake's going to taste of strawberries. Like, it's just obvious. And then you should be taught like older African music. I love like Fatoumata Diawara. She's not the old type, but that like Le Griot, you know, of like West Africa, and they're all very beautiful songs about, like, they would sing songs about like a stone next to a leaf or something, or like, and like Ali Faka Toure and all that beautiful kora music. That's not really known as African music, but it is, and it's the more, I don't know. I don't really know much about African music, but I know I like that music.
Okay. What have you found out from doing your anthropology degree so far that you wish you knew when you had started?
Well, I've only been studying it for a month, so I can't really. At the moment, we're learning about. It's interesting actually, because anthropology is quite a touchy subject because it's only recent. Like now, right? I read reports, quite recent reports, critiquing old anthropological reports in the mid-19th century, because those old anthropological reports would be like these white guys going over to some quote mark tribe, being like, these people are either so like wacky and cool, or these people don't know what they're doing with their lives because it doesn't matter, because they use their version of ethical people even though they weren't ethical people as a measuring stick, and if it doesn't match they'd constantly compare these other people to themselves, and you know. So now we critique that, and that's quite interesting. Just learning that people don't know what they're talking about. I think I've realised that recently, even in like daily life. Like no one really knows what they're saying. But sometimes you do, but sometimes people really don't, and they just say things for the sake of it, and you shouldn't always go along with it. Even me, like I think sometimes I chat a lot and I don't know what I'm talking about.
But do you find when you talk a lot, you're actually just thinking out loud?
Yeah.
Because I was taught by a fellow podcaster that a lot of conversations people have, they're not really saying what they believe, they're thinking out loud.
They're thinking it out, yeah.
But it comes across, and then they can get cornered when you kind of say, is that what you believe? And they go, yeah, because they don't want to sound silly. But they're better off just saying, well,
actually,
I'm
no,
not sure,
I was just
I need
thinking
to
it
think.
through, yeah.
In that respect. So why, before we ask you about why anthropology, going back to the Pakistan-India split, what's your point of view on that? And what's your mum's point of view? Because was she born here? Did it affect her?
So my point of view is that I don't really have one yet, and I have spent a lot of my teenagehood not really thinking about it, just being a Western kid in Brighton. But now I want to look into it. My mum's funny because I love my mum, but we bicker so much, but I love her so much. I think it's because we're quite similar is why we bicker. But she's very, very strong-minded, and she will say exactly what she thinks. And she will always like lead a group, like whether that's doing something fun or she'll always help my friends with their homework. She'll always be like the top person that you can go to. But it's a very strong. But at the same time, like she will cry at like a butter advert. Like she will cry so easily, and I can see that the tiniest thing will just make her blubber, because I think she's got so much generational trauma in her. Because even if we start talking about partition, she'll start crying. She won't not talk about it. She'll definitely talk about it. But
was she involved in the partition? It was a very long time ago, wasn't it?
No, it's just the sadness of
what year was
the
it?
split.
Do you know?
It was
1948?
47, I think.
So I know you got independence in 47.
Yeah.
And then it was in the same year you got independence.
That's something I should know. But I don't. This is what I mean. Like, I don't.
Okay.
I need to
do a bit of research.
Yeah, do you know what? I've been doing more of the interviews and stuff. But yeah, so my mum, she just gets saddened by the split of the country, and basically how before people were just living, like there were Sikhs, Hindus and Muslims, and they were all different religions, but they were coexisting, and like they would live together happily. Obviously there'd be some tensions, but there's always some tensions. But then that all just got destroyed. I think also the sadness that the Britain sort of like, there's this really good music video by Riz Ahmed, and he raps about the partition, and he metaphorically with like a relationship, and he talks about how basically very manipulated and lied to, and like Britain would pretend that they're going over to help them flourish as a country, but they wouldn't. I think just the sadness of all the like lies and the eerie weirdness of it.
The funny thing is, a couple of weeks ago, I got WhatsApp video messages through the social media, and Muslims and Hindus were fighting up north in England. I don't know if you heard about that. They're having running street battles where the police were having to divide them up. So even though, and these were generations who were born here, so that whole anti-whatever is still carried on into another country where it's thousands of miles away, and you would ask them, and to ask them why they're going at each other, I'd be very surprised if they could give you like a logical reason. I don't know. Maybe they could.
Yeah, I also don't know where this like. I mean, I haven't read enough, but how it really quickly switched from living, well, not quickly because of the whole colonisation, but where the desire to be their own people came from, when they knew that before colonisation they were all living together. I guess it's because of borders and space, isn't it? I think it just turns into like habit and pride and not lack of knowledge.
Mm-hmm. How would you solve the issue?
I'm like, I don't know. I also feel like a bit, I don't know what to say. I don't know enough. But I will. Maybe I'll get an Uber in a year and you can ask me that.
A year?
Yeah,
Okay.
a year after doing this.
What's your plan of action once you got your degree? What does the future hold for you? And is it a sandwich degree where you're going to do a year's work experience in some foreign country?
There's lots of different options. I'm lucky enough, there's money on my mum's side of the family because her dad worked for the UN, so I'm lucky enough to have the freedom to, if I want to do a master's, I can do a master's, or I don't know yet. I definitely want to work. I don't know whether I want to go more down the creative, like documentary side. I mean, ideally, I'd love to work with documentaries. That's what I want to do, and go around and interview people and stuff. I don't really know how yet. I'm sort of just taking one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's another part of me just wants to like live in a van and just not do anything, but I can't do that because I think that would be a bit selfish because I have the money in my family to do something more, so I'm going to.
Okay.
But I don't know what. Definitely documentary, or just, I know, like everyone's like, I want to help people. I want to help people, maybe not one-on-one, but through like creating something.
Do you think anthropologists are needed?
Yeah.
Why?
Oh, that's a good question though, because actually the anthropologists came about to help colonizers do their thing. So it's interesting. It's like I haven't actually thought about.
There's been many
there's been a lot of dickhead anthropologists.
There's been paedophile anthropologists. There's anthropology when they went to South America to the rainforest, and they changed the whole village. They brought in prostitution, changed the whole tribe, and they brought in lots of social issues we have in the West that they would never had before.
Yeah.
And that's also through the sense of belonging, sense of this ownership.
Yeah.
Because if the village mentality, the tribe mentality was we share everything, so nothing is owned by anybody.
Yeah, it's
but yet
awful.
you bring in, no, this is yours because you made it. And the only way you should let somebody have it is if they pay you in some form or of another.
Yeah, I mean that's why I think that anthropology should just be seen as a completely different thing as it was, because before it was this sort of like sly, like I'm gonna look at you and study you and secretly use you, and you're not really gonna know about it until it's too late, and that's why I'm studying you. But now it's genuinely just studying people. They tell us in the lectures, like the aim of anthropology is to make people feel better as a community and a society. That's like it. Like sociology, and then you can sort of use that in your own way.
That's like bringing religion to the natives. It's not necessarily going to work out for everybody, is it?
What do you mean?
Well, religion to the natives brings everybody. Most nations or races or groups of people had their own belief system. So you bring your religion, why do they need it? It just causes problems. If you left people as they were in the first place, they'd be getting on. They wouldn't have the issues that they'd have today. They may have some like neighbourly issues, which are inevitable. Just like you have a sister or brother, you're going to squabble at times. Yeah.
I mean, they had such different systems of order and society, and it was less hierarchical. I mean, we learnt about the Mbuti tribe people. I'm really bad at I think it was in Samoa. I can't remember where. And their way of living is a metaphor of the forest. And we also critique whether this is we read this report about these people talking about, this guy talking about the Mbuti tribe, and he was saying that they didn't have very good social order because it wasn't the nuclear family thing, because they would have these sort of circles of your chosen family friends, and they'd be these circles arranged in 8, a circle, and it would and they'd all help each other. So one group would go out and get the water, one group would go out and get the the fire or the wood, and we critique like the way that this guy went over and said they don't know what they're doing, so we need to impose these things on them. I don't know what I just said. I don't really make it.
Would you say the same thing's done with the family structure here? Because traditionally, obviously, the late females would be at home and the men would go to work. And people say, oh, that's really bad, females need to be at work. But then what's happened now, you've got a lot of children who have no one to be accountable to. Because when they're growing up, they're going to school when the parents have gone to work, and they're coming home when the parents are still at work.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
So it's breaking down the family structure, and the argument would be that the government wants more tax money. Because you get more people to work, you get more tax money. But the way to cover that is to say, get feminists to say, no, you should be at work, you should never be at home. Or someone's got to be at home.
And then you get really, really, really tired mothers because they're doing both.
Yeah. But then the argument should be society should be set up in a way that both parents don't have to work to make a household work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it should. That's what my mum says, that she not misses, but she not like the difference in raising a kid in Pakistan. It's all the neighbours, the cousins, the aunties, they all raise the kid. It's not just the mother or the dad. It's literally all of the family friends. That's why you get so much postnatal depression in the West. You don't really get that as much in like Latin American societies. Well, there's just also just this thing of like mothers having postnatal depression because of the guilt of not having that instant love of your baby, because you have so much pressure to look after this baby 24/7. In other societies, it's like you get your auntie or your neighbour. I don't know how that would work and how that's it's never gonna change here. It would only change if you personally made that change.
Yeah. Well, people bring their cultures over when they come to England, but the problem, I would say, is that culture has never been able to flourish here so easily. Because everybody's falling into that work, kind of having to be work every day in those respects. Yeah. But it's been an interesting interview.
Yeah.
Very informative. We wish you well in your studies.
Thank you. I feel like I did that thing where I spoke and I was also working things out. So no one hold me accountable, all right?
Okay, does that mean you don't? Well, next question is, where can people find you? But you might not want to give out your social media if you don't want no one to hold you accountable.
On the moon.
On the moon. Okay. Well, thanks a lot for that, and we wish you well.
Thanks, see ya.
We hope that episode enhanced your life. We post an interview every day, as well as vlogging on our social media channel. Don't forget to subscribe to get our latest episode.